Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live 10 questions with series. If you haven't joined us before, here we chat with entrepreneurs and business leaders to hear about their journeys and the lessons they've learned along the way, of course, with the hopes of helping all of us in our individual journeys too. There's always something that you can relate to in these conversations. And this month, we are celebrating Black Business Month. So with that, today we'll be sitting down with Keba Konte, the founder of Red Bay Coffee. Now, if you're from the Bay Area in California or even Chicago or New York, you've probably heard of Red Bay Coffee. It's kind of a staple in the Bay Area. I love Red Bay Coffee, and I can't wait to dive into the story. Keba will also discuss how Red Bay addresses the most problematic areas in the coffee industry, why he's so dedicated to empowering local farmers, and how he's fostering a community of inclusivity, all the while managing 6 retail locations and a booming e-commerce platform. I can't wait to get into the story, but before we do, a reminder for all of you who are tuning in, if you have any questions for Keba, make sure you use the comments section to ask them. We will get to as many of your questions during a live Q&A with Keba at the end of today's event. So ask them in the comments and we'll get to as many as we possibly can. And hey, if you find yourself not having any comments or questions, that's totally fine. Just shoot us a hello. Tell us where you're tuning in from. We know that you have tuned in from all parts of the world. I think we've had somebody from almost every single continent at this point, and we want to hit all of them. So shout out to us, tell us where you're from, and we will give you a shout out right back. Now, without further ado, please join me in a very warm, albeit virtual, welcome for the founder of Red Bay Coffee, Keba Konte. Hey, Keba, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Hi, Kendall. Thanks for having me on your program today.
Oh, thanks for joining us. I'm super excited to dive into the Red Bay Coffee story. I know so many friends who are big fans and who drink your coffee, so I'm nice. Excited. Now, I gave our viewers a brief description of Red Bay, but can you go ahead and give me your own elevator pitch? I always like to start with that with our founders.
Yeah, sure. Red Bay Coffee. At Red Bay Coffee, we bring beautiful coffee to the people. And we do that. We're a specialty coffee brand based in Oakland, California. We have retail coffee shops. As you mentioned, we have e-commerce and a vibrant business to business in the grocery stores, offices, and we're really out here leading ourselves and our community with our values, and we're just out here in the world trying to make it a better place and serve some beautiful coffee at the same time.
Man, we need more of that here, and now truly more than ever before. So I really appreciate that, and I look forward to kind of diving into the base story. Now, that wasn't one of my 10 questions, so we're going to start now if you're ready to get in the hot seat.
Ready when you are.
All right, awesome. So question number 1, in order to fully understand Red Bay Coffee, we need to understand you, Keba Konte, and the path that led you here. Can you take us on that journey?
Sure, I'll try to keep this brief, but essentially, I started off my career as a photojournalist out of San Francisco State University. I traveled around to Cuba before the Soviet Union pulled out. So I was in early 90s, 91. I was in South Africa in 1994, photographing the election of Nelson Mandela. And I spent the rest of the 90s doing a lot of music photography in the Bay Area with some of the biggest names in music in that time. And then I really transitioned into a visual artist career, doing my visual arts, photography, mixed media, printing images on wood, and these assemblage types of style. You could look that up, just search my name with art. And then actually, an opportunity came my way to take over an old diner in North Berkeley, and I thought that would actually be fun to open a little coffee shop and have it also double as a gallery to showcase my artwork. So even as an artist, I was very entrepreneurial. So showcased my artwork there. It was called Guerrilla Cafe, Guerilla Cafe, and it was this was 2005, 2006, and that was really at the very forefront of what we now call the third wave of coffee. And so that was really how I got my first foot into the door in the coffee industry. But from there, I ran Guerrilla Cafe and then started another coffee shop in San Francisco called Chasing Lions Cafe. And so at this time, I had two coffee shops. I wanted to sort of broaden it out, and I wanted to start roasting coffee myself. You know, we were serving some of the best, coffee companies, coffee roasters that were in the game at that time. And I had been traveling to Africa, to the Caribbean, Central and South America, as an artist and photographer. And that's where coffee is grown, right? That's primarily where the big coffee origins are. So I took it upon myself to start learning on how to roast coffee, and I set up a little garden room in my home in the Fruitvale district of Oakland, California, and turned it into a little lab, which I called the Coffee Dojo. And from there, I just started training myself and spent about a year and a half taking courses, watching YouTube videos, and speaking to anybody who would share some knowledge with me. And finally developed myself and my skills in a couple coffee profiles that I was proud of. And I started serving those at my, I knew I had at least two customers, my own two cafes. So with that, that's how I began Red Bay Coffee.
Wow, what a story. I love that for so many reasons. One being, you started your career doing something completely different, and now you're here today, which I love, because I think, just like we talk about soulmates, everybody, you can have so many different soulmates. It doesn't just have to be one person. And just like you can have so many different passions. You don't have to just follow what you studied or follow what you started your career doing. I think that's amazing. But the other thing I love is that how much you learned and how much you were invested in the coffee industry. And so from those years, kind of leading up to where you are today, what did you see? You mentioned the third wave of coffee, and we know that there was some big issues in there. So of your years, leading up to now, what are the top 3 issues you witnessed in the coffee industry, and how has Red Bay stepped in to address those?
Well, there's tons of issues. There are issues with inclusivity in the specialty coffee space, really in coffee in general, but in the specialty coffee space, it was particularly pronounced. And what I found really sort of tragically ironic was in my travels around the world to different coffee origins. Coffee does not grow in North America. It does not grow in Europe. It really just grows in sort of the Sun Belt, these black and brown countries around the world. But when you go to some of the more in some of the developed world and in the US in particular, and you see the specialty coffee, the industry there are very few people who look like the folks growing the coffee. And so there was a lack of diversity there and representation. But also there was sort of inequity in how sort of the economy of coffee worked, where the growers really got the smallest piece of the pie, and they did the hardest work. Trust me, I mean, I've been outside of the grow. I've done importing, I've done roasting, I've done the cafe, and all sorts of different aspects of it, and growing coffee is the hardest work. So, and they get the least amount of the piece of the pie there. So that's another issue, so just to address those issues off the top, because they're big ones. So the first part is in terms of some of the sort of inequities and lack of diversity in the industry. I mean, mostly it's sort of just having the intention, right? to want to address an issue, to see
Yeah.
it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to just look around and recognize who's not in the conversation, who's not in this cafe, who's not in this industry. And so I think that's the first step. And that's
Yeah.
what, and that's the first step that I took, is recognizing, acknowledging that fact.
Yeah.
Second step is to is to take action. And in our case, we started to build a company with that as a mission, to really broaden out the net, to bring beautiful coffee to the people. And
Mm-hmm.
beautiful coffee is more than just like pretty latte art and beautiful old sort of steampunk machines and green, up in the hills of Ethiopia, and green coffee plants and cherries in the forest. That is beautiful coffee, but
Yeah.
beautiful coffee is also about the relationships,
Yeah.
fair relationships, around the world. So what we did was try to give more opportunities, create more opportunities. Now, that's also extra challenging, because if there are not already folks in the industry, getting that experience and getting those skills, where do you get people with experience? And this is a
Right.
highly competitive field, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area. Maybe one of the most competitive landscapes in the country. And
Mm-hmm.
so, a social mission alone is not going to help you grow your business.
Right.
You can maybe get the first sale of a bag of coffee, but if the coffee is not absolutely delicious and compelling to bring them back, coffee is built on relationships. Coffee is built on repeat customers. So,
Yeah.
so we knew quality had to be, zero, laser focused,
Mm-hmm.
in on that. And so, we from the day one, we knew I have this mission, and that mission includes creating a very delicious cup of coffee. So we put a lot of detail and experience and attention to detail into developing these profiles, sourcing the best coffee that we could from sources that were having a good impact in their communities, and on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And we would also pay them fairly. I
Yeah.
think and part of that deal is direct trade. So when we have a direct trade relationship, right, or even just relationship coffee,
Yeah.
we're cutting out the middleman, so to speak, and we're able to pay those farmers a higher wage for their coffee.
Amazing. That's actually something I want to get into. This is a huge, I mean, you said it, but this is a huge, huge part of your mission. And you've stuck to that promise, which I think is amazing. Actually, I just have to say, somebody just commented and said, I can't really express my happiness in words, but all I can say is thank you for keeping your promise. And I was lucky to participate, from Erica. So you have kept this promise. This is a huge part of your mission. A quote from your website actually is, direct trade helps everyone win. My question is how difficult is this to do? How difficult has this been to maintain this promise for you? Because it's one thing to say you're going to do it, and it's another thing to do it and continue to fulfill it every single day.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is what how we've won the sort of hearts and minds, if you will. Maybe that sounds corny, but I
No.
believe that folks have really supported Red Bay Coffee in good times and challenging times, and it is because of the coffee is delicious, and because they believe in our mission. And I mean, it's is it hard? Business is hard, right? It's always hard, no matter what. I
Yeah.
mean, even if you're buying exploitative coffee, it's still hard. So,
Yeah.
and that's all that we know. But that's also what is kind of keeps you going when things get tough.
Yeah.
Is that 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 you got folks kind of depending on you, and that you're giving it your all. So really what, the first part of that, was having enough scale, growing our company to the scale where we can start doing direct trade, right? Because when we
Yeah.
first started out, we weren't we weren't able to really do as much for the farmers, except sourcing from farms that we thought were doing a good job in their own mission, and with value alignment. And because to do a direct trade, you're going to have to fill an entire shipping container. Shipping container is about 320 bags of 120 pounds of coffee bags. So it's a lot of coffee. And so we had to grow our business in order, and this is just like one type of coffee, right? So, and we've got 8 or 9 different SKUs. So, that was the first hurdle to get there. And so, so that was a big one. And what we did there was basically, the strategy was to basically transform the exporters into logistic partners. Because how coffee industry works is the exporter will identify some coffee, they'll give you a sample, you buy the coffee, and and if it's not right for any reason, that exporter owns it, right? And you could just send it back. So they're taking the big risk there. When you transform their role into a logistics partner, they're reducing their risk. They're taking a smaller piece of the margin, but then we pick up that risk. So knock on wood, we've had really good success and fantastic partners along the way, from Tanzania to Burundi to Guatemala, and I could go on and share some stories about some of our farm partners and their just dynamism. Some really fantastic people there on that side too.
Yeah, I mean, but it also speaks so highly of you that you have been able to create those partners and create those relationships and build success the way you have. Success comes with it's 95% hard work, but that other 5%, I believe, comes from being a good human, having a strong mission that is giving back to the world in some way, and you for sure are doing that. Another thing you mentioned, I think you're doing pretty great. Another thing you mentioned earlier was this idea of inclusivity and the people who are on the farms and working the farms and growing the coffee don't look the same as the people who are running the shops. And we saw that in the third wave of coffee. We saw that while it changed and it was becoming more inclusive in some ways, it was not opening. There weren't a lot of Black and brown coffee shop owners or entrepreneurs. So my question for you is, how do we continue to open the doors of the coffee world to be more inclusive? And what can leaders in other industries take away from that as a lesson for their own businesses?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that, and it's not just, racial demographics, right? There's a lot of folks that have been left out of this really exciting and fun and interesting industry, because coffee industry, it's not just a coffee shop and the barista and the owner. It's the coffee roasters, it's the technology, it's the training departments, it's the marketing departments, it's the importing and exporting, it's the quality control. I mean, it's just really a vast industry with so many facets and so many different roles. And you don't have to be an expert taster to get into the industry. You don't have to, you better drink coffee, but but there's just my point is that there's a lot of roles, and there's just a lot of folks that just weren't getting, women, for example, are also sorely underrepresented. But I've seen, just in my 12 years in this industry, have seen women really just grow in the industry and in leadership positions. For sure, that's something that we've also done at Red Bay Coffee, is hire and grow and promote women into leadership roles. Pre-pandemic, we had like 60% of our leadership were women. Wow. We also hire formerly incarcerated folks. Love that. Of all backgrounds, former foster youth who have been aged out of the system. So I think once you just sort of, put that framework on how you see the world and opportunities, and who's getting these opportunities and how you can share those opportunities. And then it's not rocket science, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's many more difficult challenges in the world. So I think, again, like I began, it starts with the intention to want to do that and solve that problem. And you can't just sort of hire your friends and your friends circles and your friends friends. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
referrals are important, but if you want to make a change, and you have to do that. And to answer your question, how can the rest of sort of business world, the public, consumers support that development? I would say, be intentional about who you're supporting, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the mission? I have asked, companies, what is their sort of hiring demographic? How are they performing on their own? Well, first of all, do they have goals on diversity, and
Yeah.
how are they measuring up against those? So, I won't put you on the spot for NetSuite here, but
Mm-hmm.
if this was a different forum, and we were having a meeting with NetSuite, that's certainly a topic that we would discuss.
Absolutely. And that's such great advice. Really quickly, we have some hellos coming in from the audience I don't want to ignore. So Shahan, hello from Dubai. From Isabel, hi from Spain. From Zafar, hello from Spain. Oh,
Yay!
wow, two
All
people from
right.
Spain. I love that. And
Yeah.
then from Tanya, ciao
Hola.
from Kansas.
Uh-huh.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so we talked about opening doors to inclusivity, but in actual literal doors, you recently opened your sixth retail location, your flagship Oakland Cafe. Congratulations. How
Thank you.
how do you ensure that each of your locations embodies that sense of community and inclusivity that we were just talking about?
I mean, I think at this point, it is just built into the culture of the company, and it's something that we do. It's a part of how we hire. It's part of how we train. It's part of our ethos. It's when
Yeah.
we're training people, um, you know, very often we're training people who don't have a lot of experience. So, they're sort of humble to begin with.
Yeah.
But we're also, they understand that they're being hired by Red Bay Coffee, and what
Hmm.
our mission is, and what our values are. We make that clear, when they apply for a job, in our job postings, in the job interview, and in the training. We understand if someone is coming in and they're used to ordering at Starbucks, and they're ordering, a drink that's, really more of a Starbucks drink. We
Yeah.
don't sort of huff and roll our eyes at them, right? We let them know what we offer, what a macchiato is to us, and
Yeah.
or an africano, or we just kind of try to translate. But we meet people where they are, and with their coffee experience.
It's great.
You know, I mean, yeah, we are coffee snobs, but we're inclusive coffee snobs, right? We're trying
Yeah.
to get everybody on this specialty coffee bandwagon, and let them know the real true, the beauty of a delicately roasted, high elevation, washed, Ethiopian coffee or something, single origin. And I mean, it's just such a eye-opening experience. If you've only been drinking, like kind of commercial coffee all of your life.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud that I think people understand that about us, and they may not go into your typical sort of specialty coffee roaster or cafe or something, but they'll come and give us a shot. And very often we're meeting people for the very first time and giving them their first pour over or a shot of espresso. So we hold that dearly, and so yeah, we just opened a flagship cafe in Oakland, but we also opened another shop about a month later in San Francisco at the San Francisco Ferry Building, which is
I saw that.
an iconic building. It's the location, it's like the epicenter of specialty food in San Francisco and the Bay Area. What honor to be there. And I mean, it's just lets out, the ferry just lets customers right off there. You're looking at the San Francisco Bay and the Bay Bridge, and
That's awesome.
it's a very sweet location there as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I have to quickly shout out because I am one of the people that is very intimidated by coffee in the world of specialty coffee. And my boss, Fritz, is so into it. And I always joke that he's like a coffee connoisseur. He would have loved to do this interview, but shout out to him. He was super excited to hear about this and looked over some of my questions because like I said, he just loves this world. And I'm sure he'll be tuning in with some questions during the Q&A. So I can't wait for those to come, but I love how you are. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that what you said though, is, no matter if you're used to ordering, I hate to say this, but like a skinny cinnamon dolce with soy milk from Starbucks, like we'll meet you where you are. I think that's so important. Sure. Now, aside from your retail locations, you also distribute to retailers, grocers, and cafes. You sell direct to consumer through your e-commerce site, and pre-COVID, you serviced major companies in the Bay Area like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Airbnb. What tools do you use to manage and track success across these many channels?
Well, we use the best tools in the world, of course, and that includes NetSuite. And I'd like to give a shout out to Luxent, who is our NetSuite partner and who helped us get up and running and getting our system up and running. And because we have a very complex business model. Some folks only have an e-commerce business or only have a cafe. But we're importing a raw good, say, 100 pounds. We have to roast that. It transforms into maybe 80, 85 pounds. And then we grind that, send it to a coffee shop, or we may process it and turn it into cold brew, or we may turn it into, some other treats or into a, canned beverage. So it takes all these different formats. We have different locations where we're doing manufacturing. Inventory management, I mean, it could really just get out of control if you're not on it and don't have the proper tools and platforms. So so that's what NetSuite has allowed us to do is to really track that in almost real time to understand our cash position, to understand our inventories and where inventories are, and inventory control. So these things are really important from the cafe retail side to the manufacturing and roasting side. And all of our different department heads are engaging into this platform, and we're all able to see real time where our coffee is in transit, from the farm to our ports. And there's a lot to it.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of answered my next question, which was going to be like, what is uniquely challenging about a business model like this? But you kind of broke it down. I mean, you're taking from the farmer and the many pounds of beans that you get to roasting it, to distributing it, to turning it into whatever type of product that you're going to turn into. Is there anything that you would?
Well, I'll add to that. Which is, because the first businesses were cafes. So I ran cafes for 8 years before I got into the roasting side. And the thing of the business model in the cafe, is much simpler, but still the customer comes, they order, and then they pay you first. Right. So you get paid at the end of the day, you've gotten all of your money. Right. And then you're delivering the drink, the product. So that segment of the business still runs that way. But then there's a whole nother set of the business, the wholesale side to the grocers and whatnot, where, some of them are demanding 60, 30, 60, 90 days net term. So, and then you're having to kind of collect from some of the smaller folks and we're all, And when it comes to that, I've been a small business. We're still a small business, but I've been a very small business. So I understand, what folks go through. So we're understanding there too. But anyway, just so it is complex like that.
Yes. And we can't get on this topic of challenges, especially in food and bev services, without addressing, of course, the past 17 months. So first, how did closures amid the pandemic impact your business and your plans for Red Bay, and how did you adapt around that?
Yes, how did that? So I remember like it was yesterday.
Right?
And
it feels like yesterday sometimes.
Yeah, it was March. I mean, it feels like it just hasn't ended. Like it's just been one long, long day. But yeah, it was March 2020, and the NBA, stopped the games and sent their players home, and that was a signal for all the tech companies to send their employees home. Now, we were sort of over invested in that industry. 60% of our business was in office coffee service at some of the tech companies that you mentioned. So we're right here in the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley. Top 10, 20 tech companies were our clients. We were serving the entire campus for Facebook, Airbnb, Twitter. Actually, Twitter, we had just won that account. There was a big coffee tasting, and the employees chose the coffee, which was really awesome. And they chose Red Bay Coffee. We put in the very first order, and then they sent all the employees home.
Oh my gosh!
So that was like 60% of our revenue off the top. And then at the time, right, the term the essential services was like, all right, well, what's an essential business? And we weren't clear at whether coffee shops were essential businesses or not. So, in the abundance of caution, we closed our coffee shop. So that was another 30% of our business. So, we were just in, grocery store in a pretty modest way, and we had a non-existent, but we had, our e-commerce was, we were doing, I don't know, maybe $5,000 a month or something, but we had, we had the infrastructure there, thank goodness that we had that. And so we were set up there. And it was tough. I mean, we were looking, this could have been the end of our company easily.
Right.
Wow. So a couple of things happened. First thing happened was sort of the nation really rallied around their local small businesses, right? Who were at least the small businesses that were capable of e-commercing. So there was just there was a bump in e-commerce sales because people just wanted to support the local businesses. So that's the first bump that we had. And then after a couple of weeks, we sort of rolled up the door at our roastery, which is where we had one cafe, and just did curbside. And in addition to coffee, we started offering, the entire carton of oat milk or a container of, chocolate milk or teas or, we didn't get into the toilet paper, like some folks did, but we started really selling things that people needed, sugar, just things that you could just buy in bulk. So you could kind of make one less trip to the grocery store. So to make ourselves essential, right? And coffee in bigger bags. And so we pivoted that way. We only had, 2 shops though that we could open there. The other of our shops at that time were in shared spaces where there was in a lobby of an office building downtown San Francisco in the financial district, or in a shared, food hall. So those places are still actually closed today. We got a couple places open. It was just my wife and co-founder and our daughter, who is an adult and one of the baristas, and so we just showed up and started curbside service. We had to just make some really hard choices and some we had to turn off all the faucets, as the expression goes, and just
Yeah.
stop all spending that just wasn't absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
And then we had to furlough people. Then later on, we had to lay off, do layoffs. But, we had over 60 employees at the time. We had to keep our roaster, our account manager, and, and just a couple more people, in operations and the filling bags. So we were down to 8 people within a matter of, 10 days or less. And so that was, a really painful, experience, but, it's survival mode, so we're in tunnel vision, and how do you just get on the other side of this is, like I said, our community rallied around us. Our investors, took a chance, and put in some more resources for us. Of course, there was the PPP loans, we got in on the second round of that. And then the summer came, and then that's when the murder of George Floyd happened, and there was a, the Black Lives Matter movement, was reignited, and there was a movement to really support Black-owned businesses. So then that really helped support and push our e-commerce channel up even higher, and then. And then we were also listed, on a lot of lists of businesses to support, including Forbes put us on a list, Oprah Winfrey put us on a list, which later turned into us being on the list of Oprah's favorite things for her holiday campaign. So when the holiday came, that sort of, it was like a triple swan event. So then, we were seeing unbelievable, growth in e-commerce. Just our time there, topping, $400,000 a month in the sort of holiday season.
Wow.
And then, so then sort of to back up a little bit, and so probably March, and then April, I had been building out a mobile coffee van out of a used old Mercedes Sprinter van. And it was together. We hadn't had our permits. It wasn't totally together yet, but it was functional. So we just brought that out to the park, to the lake, and people were staying at home. They weren't going to work, and so we had a line out the door. So across the grass anyway. And so we were able to sort of pre-launch our mobile coffee van. So that helped. And then we were slowly, as we were opening cafes and, and growing production, and, our company looks different today. The shape of it, the organizational chart looks different, but we've grown our business back. And we're actually almost 60 employees again.
Wow.
We've, so from 19 to 20, the growth was, because we were on a pretty nice trajectory, but it stayed flat, which was an accomplishment. But from 20 to 21, we've grown about 98%. So almost 100% growth from last year. We anticipate the same amount of growth, going into next year. We've since, this year alone, we've opened accounts at Trader Joe's, Target, and Cost Plus World Market. Trader Joe's, we were one of the first ever non-Trader Joe's branded coffees. So it's been, an incredible, journey, and we're sort of out of survival mode now. And, we're able to some of our team is able to wear less hats and kind of start to kind of spread the work around and settle into our new normal.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. Love hearing that you're coming out of it. Love hearing those growth numbers. I know you said you saw a bump in e-commerce, and then after all the lists and everything else, I understand that the business saw a 350% spike in e-commerce in just 90 days. And now, year over year, you're telling me about 98% growth. So how do you manage that growth, and what lessons will you carry forth from it?
Yeah, there was a lot of it was challenging, right? Just absolutely dealing with that growth, and we've got a great team,
Yeah.
in our operations and production department, and we are looking, we're adopting, sort of shipping technology, new apps, and one thing is not working, we close that, open up another one, and
Mhm.
I mean, we're just scrambling, and doing the best that we can. There were some moments where our little machine couldn't quite keep up. So we have a neighbor where we're able to, use their equipment to
Mhm.
roast coffee, and we're buying coffee on spot, stuff that you weren't able to have in stock if we're running out of coffee.
Right.
In terms of, sort of the Oprah effect, trying to keep up with that level of growth, where we had some custom bags, but we ran on those bags. So you have to get stickers and, in our
Yeah.
design, so my background is an artist, my co-founder and chief of brand, my wife, Raquel, who's got, she's runs the branding side of the business. She comes from Levi's. And so, so she's, very conscientious about, all of our branding and products and labels. And so, we're not going to send out anything that looks raggedy. But, we still have to be scrappy and deal with, so how do we deal
Yeah.
with that growth? Yeah. And we're, so that's a few of the tips on how we dealt with that growth.
That's great. I mean, one of the biggest pieces of advice I've gotten from different entrepreneurs is, no matter how big you get, you still operate like a small business. You still have that scrappy mindset. You still get the job done when you need to get it done. And I think that's great. And that's kind of what you're saying here. You can see massive growth, but you got to operate like a small business and get done what you need to get done.
That's right. That's right.
Love to hear it. All right. Our final question, Keba, question number 10. What does the future hold for Red Bay and how will you get there?
The future is very exciting, so I think, a big part of our future is, so we've had three categories:
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce, business to business, which includes the
Mm-hmm.
office and the grocery, and then our retail cafe. So we're
Mm-hmm.
launching a third category, which is our ready to drink canned coffee beverages. And
Amazing.
one of my afflictions is coming up with ideas, right? And I just always got different ideas, and if I'm really inspired by it, I just cannot rest until it comes to life. So one of them, and I've been sitting on this one for 5 years. 5 years ago, we were making our cold brew coffee, and we make it in a concentrated form. And
Mm-hmm.
it was the summer. I was in the coffee dojo, which is a beautiful little room, about this tall of a ceiling, one size of one car, opens up in my garden on each side. So, it couldn't be a sort of idyllic location to really start, a food or beverage business. But anyway, so I was pouring it. I poured it over ice, and instead of adding water to hydrate it, I added sparkling water and a little bit of vanilla syrup,
Wow.
and it was almost like a cola experience. And
Yeah.
I took that, to some jug of that and some bottles of carbonated water and the syrup, and took it to an event, and people were coming back for it. But this was 5 years ago, and I had no way to really, I didn't have the resources at the time to manufacture it. So I just sort of put it to the side. And
Yeah.
so anyway, so now we just launched the black coffee spritzer, and
Wow.
it's lightly sweetened with agave, and it's a sparkling coffee beverage. So that's the first line. There'll be that one and a couple iterations on it. The flavors: there's a blackberry flavor, which we're calling the Blackerberry
Mm-hmm.
Spritzer. There's a vanilla spiced flavor in the original, and we'll do some plant-based lattes and just a cold black coffee as well. But so that's, has the potential to really reach more people. This coffee is still the same coffee that we're sourcing from all these partnerships and the things that we're doing. So that's something I'm really excited about. It has, the growth potential of a ready to drink. I mean, we're really competing in the energy drink space, which, is, just billions and billions. And unlike sort of whole coffee beans that have a short shelf life and require people to grind and do pour overs or coffee make at home, this just has a much more accessibility to it, which helps further our mission to bring beautiful coffee to the people, right? So look out for that, and in your local retailers. The Cost Plus World Market will have it at all of their stores
Love it.
later this year, and we'll have it on our own e-commerce and in our own shops as well.
Amazing. I mean, me and our producer Tori, who our audience can't see right now, but she's in the background producing for us right now. We have a sick obsession with Cost Plus World Market, and now it's just going to be even more reason to go. That sounds amazing. Can't wait to try these products. So very exciting stuff. We have a couple people commenting and questions coming in. We only have a couple more minutes, so I'm going to get to as many as possible. But first, from Pam, Keba, love that. Intention for access to opportunity, so important. Thank you so much, Pam.
My mom's name is Pam. I wonder if that's mom. Anyway, if that's you, Mama.
Hello. I love that.
And shout out to Spain and Dubai and Kansas. Love y'all.
Yes, everybody. We have from Terrence, great conversation and inspiring. Thanks, Keba. And actually, from Luxent, our partner, thanks for the shout out. We love Red Bay coffee. So lots of shout outs coming in here and a couple questions. We only have time to get to a couple, but I think some of these are fun and important. So number one, from Fritz, my boss, I knew he was going to ask this. What is your favorite way to make coffee?
Yeah, I mean, my go-to is just a simple pour over, at home, either in a Chemex if I've got company, or just as a little pour over in a V60. But just grind the coffee right there and do a simple pour over. It's just like, it's meditative. It's just clean, and it's just black coffee. I do enjoy espresso as well, but just a straight up pour over is my go-to. I'm traveling in Vancouver at the moment. So I was not able to bring all my coffee gear. So I traveled with my Cometeer coffee. If you guys don't know about Cometeer is one of the most innovative coffee, technologies that the country has seen. And they're basically freezing concentrated coffee, instantly freezing them in all aluminum, 100% recyclable containers. And so you could put it into a, sort of a pod system, or you can just thaw it out and put it into a cup of hot water. So that's my travel coffee. That's what I've been drinking here in Vancouver when I'm not in these lovely little coffee shops. So shout out to Cometeer as well.
That's actually great, because another question that came in here from Paul, what future coffee trends intrigue you?
Yeah, so what we're seeing in the coffee trends, because when I got started back in 2005, it was, everything had to be handmade coffee, right? No batch brew, but the technology has really kept up with the specialty coffee and competing with, so there's a ton of sort of convenient coffees, like instant coffees, pods, things. I mean, most of the pods, if they're not 100% recyclable, they're kind of turned off because they're not great for the environment. But you could always have those refillable pods as well. So, but yeah, in terms of one of the most, the two most innovative ones that I'm really excited about are the Cometeer, Cometeer, and also steeped coffee, which is a very simple idea, all compostable materials, so, even a higher level of sustainability, but it's coffee in a tea bag.
Wow.
So it's just what it sounds like. You just open it up and you steep it, and you have coffee in a tea bag. So we'll be launching some of our coffee in the steep packages as well later this year.
Very cool. That's all so exciting, Keba. This was such a exciting and interesting conversation, and you are a wonderful person to just talk to. And even though we're virtual, I can feel the good vibrations through our computers, and I'm just so, just like I
Yay.
said, thrilled to talk to you, thrilled to hear about the Red Bay story. And we have even more exciting news for those of you that are joining us and tuning in. Keba and Red Bay are actually offering a promotional code that you can use on their website. And the code is NetSuite25. It is in the first comment on this live. So go ahead and check that out. And Keba, thank you for that. Thanks so much for doing that. Thanks for sharing your story and joining us today.
Thank you, Kendall, for having me. We'll see you in LA. We're opening our LA location next year at Hollywood Park.
Yay.
Yeah, so sign up for a subscription, anyone, and we'll give you 25% off. And appreciate the opportunity to the platform to sort of share a little bit more about our company and our experience, and beautiful coffee to the people.
Yep, we love it. Thank you so much, Keba. And as always, thanks to all of you for tuning in. We've moved this series to bi-weekly in case you haven't caught on to that yet. So we'll be right back here in 2 weeks on Wednesday, actually, switching it up, September 8th, with the founder of Can You Imagine Enterprises, Jeff Foreman. That's happening at 11:30 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday, September 8th. We will see you then. Bye.